All right. Hello and welcome back, everyone. For the next Fireside Chat webcast, we welcome Mesoblast, who trades under the ticker MESO on the NASDAQ. And joining us from the company is Silviu Itescu, the company's Chief Executive Officer. Silviu, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Nice to see you.
Wonderful. Very grateful for having you participate in the event here. For people who may not be familiar with the story, can you give us a brief overview of the company?
Sure. We're a platform technology company. We've been publicly listed since 2004. Our platform technology is based on mesenchymal stromal cells, otherwise known as MSCs. We're building a pipeline of late-stage products in a number of major disease states where severe inflammation causes life-threatening outcomes. And we're delighted that we are the first company to have ever received FDA approval for an MSC product, which we were very pleased to receive about 2 weeks ago.
Well, yeah, congratulations certainly on receiving FDA approval. Can you provide a bit more detail on the product, Ryoncil, the indication, and how you see this being adopted and used by physicians?
Sure. We have what I call a first-generation platform, which is remestemcel, and a second-generation platform, which I call rexlemestrocel. The difference between these platforms is really the way we extract and purify the cells, and the second-generation product uses monoclonal antibodies to isolate and purify very potent concentrations of MSCs. But it's the first generation that just got approved. And the cell type is remestemcel, and the brand name is Ryoncil. Ryoncil has been approved for treating a devastating complication of a bone marrow transplant in children called acute graft versus host disease. This occurs in 50% of people who get a bone marrow transplant that is allogeneic or not their bone marrow. It occurs in both children and adults. The mildest forms can be treated with steroids, but in more than 50% of cases, both children and adults become steroid refractory. And when you're steroid refractory, you've got a very serious disease that affects the gut, the liver, and has a high mortality. In children, there are no approved therapies at all for the disease until we came along and until our FDA approval. So for a disease that prior to Ryoncil being approved had a mortality of between 70 to 90%, we're very pleased that the FDA has decided and chosen to approve our product and be able to make our product available to the many children who need this desperately and their families. And we're very thankful to the children and families who've participated in our clinical trials. And we've been providing this product for a number of years already under expanded access. More than 300 children have been treated with Ryoncil under expanded access. The results to date have been terrific. In the phase 3 trial that underpinned the FDA approval, we achieved a 70% responder rate at day 28. And this is in comparison to something like a 45% with other available therapy. And that significant difference resulted in the approval process. But more importantly, a responder at day 28 really has a 90% plus chance of being alive and remaining alive long term. And in fact, in a 5-year survival study of this phase 3 trial population, we're seeing as many as 50% are alive at 5 years. And that's really a curative rate of 50%. This is for a disease that, as I said earlier, by 1 and 2 years, no more than 20% are typically alive. So not only do we see early responses, but we see durable survival benefits. And so this starts to very much look like a treatment that is curative, just like, for example, some of the gene therapies that have recently been approved that are curative. It's a cellular therapy that, unlike CAR T, for example, which have been around for a while, which are patient-specific. In other words, they're patient's own T cells that need to be extracted and expanded and given back. This is an industrialized product that is highly scalable, that is off the shelf, and it's available when the child needs it. And it's not their cells. This is from a healthy donor that allows us to make products that are reproducible, that are the same from vial to vial to vial, that are consistent, and that demonstrate the kind of efficacy that we've seen in the phase 3 trial, that will make physicians, the children, and their families confident about the outcomes with our commercial product.
Excellent background there. I mean, when you start to look at the market here for Ryoncil in acute graft-versus-host disease, how do you sort of see pricing for this product?
Well, again, as I said, we're using pharmacoeconomic analyses. For example, we can show that by treating these children who, under other circumstances with other available therapies, languish in intensive care for months before they ultimately die, our treatment gets them out of intensive care, out of the hospital, and as I said, a large number are actually cured with a single course of Ryoncil. That potentially saves the hospital $1 million in treatment. But more important than that is the fact that they're alive long term and they lead normal lives, and you can quantify the value proposition in terms of life years that are saved for these kids. I would look at the way this product is going to be priced is going to be similar to, for example, other therapies like gene therapies, which give these devastating diseases of children long-term benefits and hopes for long normal lives.
Yeah, that's helpful. Talk about sort of the go-to-market approach here. How you plan to capture sort of share of this market now that you have the approval, and any updates you can provide on how the launch is progressing.
Yeah, look, it's wonderful to be in a commercialization phase. It's been a long time coming. We've been planning for it. We've got a good team. We've got a good head of commercial and medical affairs, and they're building out their own small teams around them. It's important to remember that, first of all, we are the gold standard, and we've been providing products to more than 300 children with this complication for a number of years under expanded access. So the physicians already know us very well. 50% of bone marrow transplants are performed across the 15 major centers across the US, and really the 40 major centers probably account for about 80% of all transplants. We're already in all of those centers, so the footprint for sales and marketing is going to be relatively small. We're in the process of hiring a few more people. We're working with payers. We're working with institutions. We understand how this product is going to be charged and reimbursed, and those contractual arrangements are now being put in place. I would expect that we will have a formal, pricing strategy on our compendium publicly in the coming weeks. And already we have, a half a dozen or so children who are being referred to us since our approval, needing our product. So we're literally in the process of finalizing all of these, documents required to be able to ship product out to these desperately needed children. We've got our own projections in terms of penetration rates. There's probably, somewhere in the order of 350 to 400 patients a year with steroid refractory graft-versus-host disease in pediatric patients. We've got conservative numbers, but I think we'll be able to penetrate a large proportion of that population pretty rapidly, especially given how we're seeing already the referral base coming in, even without us being out there yet and being proactive. So I'm very optimistic. We've sort of are seeing the type of early signals along the lines of what we saw with a similar product that we licensed to a partner in Japan, Temcel, which reached 30% adoption rates within 1 to 2 years in Japan. So we're seeing, we think that's easily achievable in this patient population here in the US.
All right, that's great. We're going to be on the lookout for more information there. Maybe discuss any potential partnerships, collaborations that might accelerate the commercialization efforts, either here in the U.S. or globally.
Well, our primary focus is definitely the US, and in the US, we will be taking this product to market and generating a revenue stream, and we'll be reporting on that to the market on a regular basis. But the product has applications beyond graft-versus-host disease. First of all, it has obvious applications in adults with graft-versus-host disease. The only approved product today is used in adults. It's reasonably effective in mild disease, but not very effective in patients with severe inflammatory disease, or the 50% of patients who have severe inflammation. And so that's the obvious target population. It's about 3 times bigger than pediatric, and then we will extend from pediatric to that adult population in due course. And in fact, are working with adult physicians in the Bone Marrow Transplant Clinical Trials Network, who is an NIH-funded organization that is looking to bring our product into that adult market. However, beyond GVHD, this product has evidence of benefit in inflammatory bowel disease, in inflammatory lung disease, and those are areas that obviously in due course we will be looking to work with strategic partners that have the kind of reach and commercial footprint in those areas that we would not be building out on our own. But beyond this first generation remestemcel, we also have our second generation product that I call rexlemestrocel, that has either completed or is in the midst of phase 3 for 2 blockbuster indications in cardiovascular medicine and inflammatory back pain. And both of those areas, again, not so much for development, which we are completing on our own, but certainly for commercialization and access to the commercial channels, will be through strategic partnerships.
Yeah, I want to touch on that next here, which is what you just mentioned, your sort of second generation product here in cardiovascular. Maybe dive into that a little bit further. Sort of indications you're targeting, approach you're taking versus maybe some of the existing treatments out there.
Sure. So let's take each in its own right. The heart failure market is a massive opportunity. As we've now completed 2 large randomized controlled trials, about 500 patients with class 2-3 heart failure with low ejection fraction, and another 160 odd patients with end stage heart failure who are being kept alive on an artificial device. Across those 2 clinical trials, a large body of work and data, we've identified precisely where the largest unmet need is and where our treatment makes a significant difference. And that's in the 60% or so of patients with ischemic heart failure, the cause of heart failure being ischemia, and the setting is inflammation. That group of patients, on top of existing standard of care, and we know all the new drugs in this space, including SGLT2 inhibitors, and now some of the GLP-1 agonists are being talked about in heart failure. Those patients, despite being on these drugs, inexorably progress to class 3 and beyond. In that setting, on top of these drugs, a single injection of Ryoncil, which is our brand name for this product, resulted in something like an 80% reduction in heart attacks and strokes over 3 years, and a significant reduction in mortality. Overall, more than 50% reduction in any of these 3, mortality, heart attacks, or strokes, over a 3-year period, which is a very, very significant improvement in the most important outcomes. And that's on top of all of these other drugs. So I would envisage that this is a market that with a single intervention, our product would be in combination with any of the existing novel therapies that these patients will continue to be on. But the outcomes are very different from what these other drugs are achieving. The market opportunity is huge. I would say specifically the heart failure with low ejection fraction with ischemia and inflammation, which is measured with a very simple blood test, accounts for about 1 million patients in the United States, and probably 80 to 100,000 new patients every year. So if you think about that as a complete unmet medical need, we understand exactly what the patient population is that has demonstrated efficacy and who we would continue to target in our target market. That's a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. We've been in front of the FDA with these data, and these data, by the way, were published very recently in the European Journal of Heart Failure, and previously also published in the Journal of American College of Cardiology last year. But these data have been reviewed by the FDA together with additional data from that other population, end-stage patients who are being kept alive on a VAD, ventricular assist device. And the totality of the data allowed the FDA to give us guidance that we are able to file for an accelerated approval with the data on hand. We, of course, would, in due course, post-filing, be in a position to do a confirmatory phase 3 trial of, perhaps 240 to 300 patients, no more than that, really, that would support and confirm the data that we've already published. But that would be part of any kind of accelerated approval that the FDA would want to see, that we're beginning a confirmatory trial. So all of those things are being put in place as we speak, and I would expect that we'll have a lot to talk about to the market over the coming 6 months or so about this cardiovascular program. In addition to this, we're also in a pediatric congenital heart disease space where we've completed a small randomized controlled study showing that a single injection of our cells, Revascor, into the tiny little left ventricle of children who are born with only one right-sided side of the heart has really substantially increased the volume of the left side of the heart sufficiently so that they can then have a permanent surgical procedure that we hope will give them a normal long-term outcome. And those data have also gone to the FDA, who's given us an RMAT, Regenerative Medicine Advanced Therapy designation for this indication. So these are very important data points for our product Revascor in both pediatric and adult opportunities.
That's great there. One thing I noted was that with the pediatric rare disease designation from the FDA, how does a potential monetization of the pediatric rare disease voucher, fit into maybe your broader financial strategy? Are there any specific timelines or plans for leveraging this asset?
Yeah, so we need to speak to the FDA around sequencing the pediatric and the adult indications, and certainly if the pediatric is able to get over the line, it would come with a pediatric voucher which could be sold, and typically these get sold for about $150 million. So it would be very valuable to us. But even more valuable, of course, is an approval, right? And an approval for particularly the adult program opens up really a multi-billion-dollar franchise in the cardiovascular space. So I think we're looking at both the adult and the pediatric, and the value propositions are around both together is really the driving force for this program.
Okay, all right, makes sense. Onto your back pain opportunity. Can you provide maybe a detailed update on the progress of the second phase 3 trial?
Sure. The first phase 3 trial across 400 patients or so demonstrated a significant outcome in terms of a single injection into the intervertebral disc in patients who are refractory to other pain medications, including opioids, such that a significant reduction in pain was seen from a single injection for as long as 3 years out. Quite a dramatic difference. And the maximal effect was seen in patients who were within the first 5 years of their inflammatory pain, and that represents the population that is now being studied in a confirmatory second study, with the primary endpoint being reduction in pain at 12 months. The FDA has already acknowledged that that's an approvable endpoint. So if we meet that endpoint, we will have a product that gets approved for a direct injection. It's really a micro injection. It's a micro dose into the disc. That trial is active. It's enrolling. I think it's around 300 patients is the objective. It's now enrolling across a number of sites in the US, and of course we're ramping it up. More sites will come on board in the coming month or so, and I expect that this trial will complete enrollment throughout the year, by the end of the year. The readout is a 12-month readout, so this is a very important value proposition for the company, and it represents the third leg of the stool, if you like, because remestemcel for GVHDs, our number one focus and our number one revenue generator. Ryoncil for cardiovascular disease represents our next 12-month filing and potential approval opportunity, and rexlemestrocel for back pain represents our slightly more distant, not distant, but the third leg of the stool with readouts in 2026.
Yeah, extensive pipeline here. Given it, are there plans for expansion or diversifying the portfolio in the near term here?
Well, I think we've got a lot on our hands, right? We're very fortunate to have a real deep pipeline, leveraging a proprietary technology that allows us, through formulational changes, through second and third generation technologies, to productize, if you like, to different products for different indications with different dosages and delivery modes. So we've got a wealth of product on our hands. I think we've just shown through the remestemcel or the Ryoncil approval that that's our halo product, which means we can demonstrate that we can get over the line with the FDA. We understand how to manufacture. We understand how to get regulatory approval. We understand how to price, how to sell it. And I think it has validation for the rest of our pipeline. So I think it has tremendous value, even without further diversification. I think strategic partnerships are next on the horizon, and I think really this is about monetizing the assets and demonstrating that we can build a sustainable revenue stream.
All right. Sort of the couple minutes we have left here, talk about the balance sheet. How does sort of the current cash runway align with your sort of projected milestones, some commercial launch plans, clinical development, other initiatives over the next 1 to 2 years, maybe?
Yeah, look, our current burn rate is about 10 million a quarter. And we most recent reporting was, I think, 51 million on our balance sheet. And we're pleased that we entered into a transaction with our largest shareholder for another $50 million as a convertible at our call that would support our commercial needs. Our capital allows us to successfully commercialize, to build out a small sales force. We have 2 to 3 years worth of inventory already produced and warehoused, so we don't need to do anything more for that. Of course, as we move forward, we will continue to invest in manufacturing, commercial manufacturing for continued inventory as we grow, as we anticipate penetration growth, but also commercial manufacturing for our second generation product, particularly Ryoncil, as support for our BLA filing. So beyond manufacturing, beyond supporting our initial launch plans, we really don't have a lot in the way of spend on clinical development, particularly on the adult GVHD program. It would be predominantly NIH supported. And we expect that we will be building out investigator-initiated studies to broaden out some new indications for Ryoncil now that it's approved. Otherwise, I think we're focusing in a really laser focus on successful launch, revenue stream, and FDA filings for our other indications.
All right. Fantastic. Maybe in sort of the couple minutes we have left, looking ahead, sort of long-term vision for the company. How do you sort of see this company evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think you've got the makings of a real success story as a sustainable business leveraging products that we can bring to market. We are the experts in clinical development and manufacturing of our type of products with our technology. I think what I'm looking for really as we grow, now that we've validated our whole approach, is to bring strategic partners to the table that will work with us in terms of entering markets that are large, that are underutilized, that provide growth, a growth engine for a sustainable revenue stream across multiple applications. I think we're going to build a large, sustainable company. It will continue to be publicly listed, and we want to strengthen our investor share base. I would expect that this is going to be a long-term play.
Fantastic. Well, we'll go ahead and leave it there. Thank you so much, Sylvie, for your participation here in the event, and thank you to everyone who's watching here today. I'll say if you have any questions or would like to schedule a meeting with Mesoblast, you can send me an email. That's Blum, BLUM, at lythampartners.com. I'd be happy to coordinate there. We have a few more presentations and fireside chats coming up here throughout the day, so please don't go anywhere. Thank you again, Sylvie, so much for your time, and to everyone, have a great day.
Thanks for having me.